Are you guys ready to learn? You've tuned in to the right show. Know the cause, understand why you're sick. We're running from doctor to doctor and getting lots of prescriptions, lots of diagnoses, but rarely do we understand why our blood pressure went high, why our eyes twitch, our ears ring, and so forth. So welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm going to teach you a little bit about the ketogenic diet for epileptic seizures decades ago, good one, and my diet. How are they different? How are they similar? So you're going to enjoy that. Dr. Ann Louise Gittleman has a book called Radical Metabolism. As we age, our metabolism slows. How do we make that up? And then I'm going to also teach you a little bit about something called valley fever, right? Has nothing to do with the fever, a lot to do with a fungus that lives in sand. All that and more on this Know the Cause. My name is Doug Kaufman. For the past 40 years, I've dedicated my life and even my career to finding the root cause of disease. Join me in a team of physicians, pharmacists, and scientists, and soon you too will know the cause. Well, the year had to be, I'm back from Vietnam, 74, 75. I was working with a doctor out in Los Angeles, doing some clinical nutrition work with him. And a patient came in with a little 11-year-old girl who had epilepsy. So you can have petit mal or grand mal seizures, horrible, horrible epilepsy. And this little girl had both. And folks, I didn't know anything about diet back then. I'm drinking beer, eating Oreo cookies, sandwiches. That was my life. Living with my roommates out there, we were having a great time out at the beach. I began to study the role of food in all my weird symptoms. Jungle rot got inside my body and so forth. Well, this mom rang a bell. She said, "Are you familiar with the ketogenic diet?" Obviously, I don't know anything about diet. She told me in the 1920s out at Johns Hopkins University, these nurses put together a diet that helped children with epilepsy. She had me. I'm fascinated with all this because at that time in the early 70s, I'm putting together what today is called the Kaufman 1 diet. The diets are very, very similar with a few exceptions. So what I want to do is teach you a little bit about this ketogenic diet. I like it when it's done right. Most of the time, in my humble opinion, it's not. I met Jim Abrams, the guy who made Airplane. You remember that funny movie, Airplane? His son, Charlie, had epilepsy and found the ketogenic diet. I interviewed him 30 years ago on radio. So let's get started. In the 1920s, researchers at Johns Hopkins discovered that diet affected childhood epileptic seizures. The new diet was very successful and was called the ketogenic diet. The diet is very similar to my diet, the Kaufman 1 diet. In the mid-1990s, Hollywood producer Jim Abrams revived interest in the diet when his son Charlie was diagnosed with severe epilepsy that was controlled with the diet. I interviewed him, and what a great interview he was. And you know what I wonder? I'll always wonder if that little boy wasn't on lots of antibiotics. See, I think fungus causes epilepsy. Well, let me go down the road a little bit here. First, let me define this diet when it's done right. I think most people are not doing it right. For chronic illness, the true definition of a ketogenic diet is 81% fat. Sounds a lot, doesn't it? Less than 15% protein, and about 5% or less of total carbs with virtually zero sugar. Modified keto diet can be up to 40 to 70% fat, 20 to 25% protein, but still it's got to be under 10% total carbs. Carbs convert to sugar when we chew them up. Unhealthy versions of the diet would be using the wrong types of fats, like a lot of bacon every day, inflammatory oils like canola oil, vegetable oil, and conventional cheeses like cheeses and peanuts, peanut butter, etc. So you really have to study this. They're using these keto diets in cancer, and it's very, very exciting. If they knew the root of cancer, like I believe most of it, may be linked to fungus, then they'd understand why the diet worked. It helps starve fungus. Avoid conventional meats, so say the keto people, that are loaded with steroids, hormones, antibiotics, alcohol. Avoid alcohol. Any added sugar, corn oil, citric acid, sugar alcohols, and maltodextrin. Stick with grass-fed or organic meats in moderate amounts. Stay strict for therapeutic purposes and keep it clean if it's a modified version of the diet. meaning the percentage that can be modified if used in conjunction with a higher protein, lower fat diet like mine, like the Kaufman diet. So there's even a Kaufman keto correlation there. But I think the most important thing I want you to learn is this. I think this is why the keto works, and certainly why the Kaufman works. Fungus and epilepsy. This slide, gosh, this slide probably is 10 years old. I believe epilepsy is caused by neurotoxins. Fungus makes poisonous substances called mycotoxins. One is called penicillin. Penicillin. Has your child ever been on penicillin or any of the 1,000 variants like PenVK, etc.? Folks, it's fascinating if you look at the history of a child with epilepsy. They either have lots of mold, and the cleanest homes in Beverly Hills can have mold, or they've been on lots of antibiotics when they were young. A moldy home or grains in the diet. Grains are, they're impregnated sometimes with these mycotoxins. They expose children to neurotoxic mycotoxins. Both the keto diet and the Kaufman 1 diet minimize exposure to fungus and therefore to neurotoxic chemicals. Someday, it isn't there, I don't believe yet, someday there's going to be a very clean, no sugar at all, no other ingredients, very clean keto scoop to help you get started on the diet. Till that time, the Kaufman 1 works really well. I hope this helps. We're taught to wash our hands. Are we washing them too much? Are we washing the good bacteria off? Pharmacist Susie Cohen is here, and then after that, best-selling New York Times author, Dr. Ann Louise Gittleman, talks about radical metabolism. We all have it. Take it away.
Listen carefully. Here's a dirty little secret that soap companies don't want you to know. Apparently, some of those antibacterial liquid soaps don't protect you from germs any better than plain soap and water, and stacks of lab studies suggest these antibacterial soaps damage the thyroid. The two ingredients in question are triclosan and triclocarbon. If you're worried, just wash your hands with soap and water.
You know, it's just so exciting to bring you folks a lot of new viewers. Welcome WGN and all the new networks we're on. The show is called Know the Cause, Understanding Why You're Sick. It's such an honor to introduce to many of you for the first time Dr. Ann Louise Gittleman. I first read of Dr. Gittleman in the 1980s in a journal that she was publishing in. And she said, be careful of grain. And I almost fell out of my chair. Here was a real PhD that was saying, be careful of bread, because everyone had just shot at me when I said, don't eat grains. And you were saying, no, it's okay to go off grains. So welcome after 30, 40 years of loving your writings, your books. She's the Fat Flush doctor who wrote that, New York Times bestselling author and so forth. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
What I want to talk about, because we did some demographics, we have an aging female audience.
Like me.
Right. Well, I'm aging, just not female. Teach us where the calls are coming from, what people are asking you, what women are wanting to know about the aging process. What concerns them most?
I think it's a slowdown of metabolism. I think it's really a halting of the metabolism. It's a problem with the thyroid, no gallbladders, the inability to break down fats as well as detoxify and get rid of excess hormones.
You know, even that word detoxify is controversial. I'll never forget 2020 or one of those big shows ran a detox show. And then they had doctors from prominent universities sitting there rubbing their chins, smoking meerschaum pipes and saying, we're not toxic. Really? What's a side effect of a medication if we're not toxic? So you open that door too in your Fat Flush and other books. I'm really excited about your upcoming Radical Metabolism. They can pre-order that book. Teach us a little bit about what that says.
Well, it's all about those women like me that are younger women as well as those that are aging, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s who can't lose weight or are notoriously slow losers. And that's because of all the assaults on the thyroid. That's because of the problems with the glyphosates, the gluten that really do a slowdown to the metabolism, as well as those people that are not eating the fats that you should never stop eating, the omega-6s. So we put them on a program. There's a 4-day intensive. There's a 21-day kind of reboot. And individuals lose weight, whether they're male or female, quite frankly. Women also find that they have no more PMS, menopausal or perimenopausal issues, and they can detoxify for the first time. And with all the toxins in the air, the wind, the fires, the problems with what you're breathing in this day and age, detoxification is a daily event. It's not a seasonal affair anymore.
I did a live Facebook show last night. Was amazed at the questions I get. You know, they text me in these questions. A couple of them dealt with, gee, Doug, it really does get down to diet, doesn't it? And how little our physicians know. Does that frustrate you with all your credentials?
Not anymore, because people are reading so much and are becoming so involved in taking charge of their own health, which I'm so delighted about, because it's really up to you in terms of taking charge of your health. But it isn't just diet, it's diet and detox. And that's where the liver comes in handy. That's where the gallbladder is so important, even if you don't have one. I'll teach you what to do in radical metabolism. And that's where the thyroid is so important, because it takes a hit with all the toxins in the air, the fire, the wind, the environment, in terms of what goes on in the medications, because all that can slow down your system.
Yeah, and it's a hormonal flux. What happens at, menopause or premenopause is a real state of change inside a woman's body. And sometimes what I hear most is, what happened to this weight? Why all of a sudden am I gaining weight? Was it estrogen that was keeping my weight off?
Well, it was a lack of progesterone that was actually keeping the weight on. So it's a lack of progesterone to balance the extra estrogen. And it's everything I talk about in radical metabolism.
Okay. Now, I must ask this, fungus, a problem? I mean, this is where we go back so many years.
Fungus brought us together, yes, indeed.
Thank you for writing what you have on it. It does present a problem, along with bacteria and other organisms, viri and so forth.
It's part of the toxic load, and I find that when we can elevate your ability to handle the heavy metals, the parasites, the radiation, and the fungus, your body is then able to handle the hormones. So it all goes together, and the longer you live, the more you become a toxic waste dump. So that's the reason you need to diet and detox on a daily basis.
That's such an ugly image.
I know.
But it's true, isn't it? Because we get sick and our joints don't work and we get depressed and so
Toxins.
forth. I had the opportunity to look in advance at this book, Radical Metabolism. You need this book. You need to study, read this book, and follow its guidelines for optimum health. Thank you, Dr. Gittleman, for coming.
My pleasure.
Have you ever heard the old phrase, I'm going backwards to actually go forwards? Dr. Greg Emerson knows that better than anyone from Brisbane, Australia. He's going to join me in just a moment. After that, what is valley fever? It's in a valley, and it can induce fever. It's a fungus. Watch this.
I'm heading backwards to go forwards. The Maori from New Zealand, where I come from, have a proverb, kamura kamuri. It's the way the Maori traditionally viewed the future. The idea is that we're all walking through life backwards. They look to the past to guide the way to move into the future. I started off in the information age, walked backwards to the industrial age, kind of fell into the agricultural age. Now I've sold my farm and I'm about to leap into the next incredibly exciting phase of my life, the nomadic hunter-gatherer phase, otherwise known as the cognitive phase. I've done the same in medicine. I started knowing off everything about a single organ, the grand new age of the super specialist. Then I went backwards into what we call functional medicine, where we remember that we are not a collection of individual organs, but a conglomerate of interconnected organs. Where we remember that a problem in the gut, like a fungal overgrowth, will cause a brain or skin problem. But now I'm doing the most exciting medicine in my career. I'll call it quantum biological medicine, where you don't just see the body as a bag of organs, but as a massive electromagnetic system of interconnected communicating cells, mitochondria, and electron flow. It's just like when Trinity kisses Neo in the Matrix movie. He can't be dead because the Oracle told her she would fall in love with the one, and he's the one. When she kisses him and he comes back to life, he no longer sees the world as buildings and walls, but as it truly is, an electromagnetic program. And when he does that, he can really kick some goals. Thanks for waking me up, Trinity. This is Dr. Greg Emerson with Doug Kaufman in the mighty state of Texas.
Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today. You know, when I work clinically with a few doctors out here in Dallas, we made a huge discovery. We were putting people with psoriasis, various skin problems, seborrheic dermatitis, etc. We put these people on antifungal drugs in my diet, which starves fungus, right? The Kaufman 1 diet. And they'd come back in a couple of weeks. Well, we had a couple of Gulf War veterans who came back. They had skin problems. We didn't know. They had brain problems and neck problems and stomach problems and joint problems. We didn't know. But we found those conditions were getting better on antifungals. So let's walk down that aisle for a bit. We want to talk about something called valley fever. Okay, this is kind of an endemic problem. I'll read this with me. Caused by a fungus called Coccidioides immitis, mainly found in the soil in Mexico, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California. It can be found almost anywhere in the world. First discovered in the 1940s when 10 of 14 kids digging a rattlesnake out of its hole all inhaled this fungus, and they found it in their bloodstream. The disease is called, now you have to memorize this, coccidioidomycosis. Symptoms range from a little fever to real bad problems and even death, okay? So we all make antibodies. When your immune system's working, you make antibodies to Coccidia or Candida albicans or Fusarium, any of this mold, any of these bacteria. That's when we're healthy. As we age, we make fewer and fewer antibodies to these things, okay? Do you remember when America launched the Gulf War? Wasn't it Bush 41, I believe? Helicopters landing in what? Sand. They all stood by the helicopters. They all inhaled. Of the 700,000 troops that landed, over 100,000 sought help for an illness at the VA that nobody knew anything about. What is this? These people are coming in with all sorts of problems, okay? So here we go. Gulf War syndrome is a non-scientific label that has been frequently used to describe those veterans with unexplained illness, right? Fatigue, joint pain, skin rash, memory loss, diarrhea. It has yet to be attributed to this fungus that grows in the sand. Or better yet, do you ever watch the news? Sometimes they have just these rolling windstorms in Arizona or Southern California. Valley fever, Coccidio immitis in that sand. Folks, I have a friend who died a couple of years ago after all those storms rolled in. His doctors never accurately, I think, diagnosed his condition. And, you know, these patients go into Arizona and they say, yeah, I can't breathe anymore. My joints hurt so bad. Well, let's treat you for a number of conditions. Doctors aren't there yet, folks. They don't know about fungus. They know that much about bacteria. They know that much about viruses. And that about mycology. Vaginal yeast, ringworm, you know, toenail fungus, they got that covered because there are pills for that. Once fungus gets into your respiratory, like that sandstorm or the Gulf War, once it's in there, it's proliferating, it's disseminating via the bloodstream throughout your body. Now the joints hurt. Oh, now I'm constipated. Oh, that knee is so sore. Now I can't remember anything. Now my eye is watering. This is the way fungus works. It's insidious once it gets inside your body. How I wish doctors were educated in that area. Scientific American magazine said a few years ago, valley fever is on the rise in the U.S. and Southwest with links to climate change. Of course, it's all climate change. Couldn't be fungus that we're just becoming more vulnerable to. Most of the understanding of the etiology or the ecology, of valley fever occurred in the 1960s, and not a lot of progress has been made, said that Scientific American magazine. Folks, I got to cut to the chase here. What's interesting, everybody's saying, boy, valley fever's on the rise. No, it isn't. Doctors' ability to diagnose a fungal condition is on the rise. This show has been on the air for 19 years, and I've been beating this drum, and thousands of you have walked into your doctor's office and said, look, I get chronic infections. You've been giving me antibiotics. Could this be fungus? The doctor is probably the first to say no, and yet science doesn't hold that up anymore. Science is saying when you have a fungal condition, treat it with nystatin. No side effects. It's a drug that's been around 70 years, right? But doctors still insist on treating the infection. What you need to do If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. What you need to do is change your lifestyle. If you don't exercise, if that's the most you get, change. Get out and walk in the morning. Try my diet. It's free on the website knowthecause.com. Try the diet for a few months and see if you no longer have those infections. Don't go away. More of Know the Cause to come. Today on Know the Cause, we're making tuna stuffed avocado, none of which feeds fungus. The ingredient list includes 2 avocados, halved and pitted, 1 lime, 1 5-ounce can of solid white tuna packed in water, 1/2 bell pepper, red or any color, and then dice it. 2 to 3 teaspoons of red onion, again finely diced. Garnish with sliced jalapenos. 1/2 teaspoon dill, dried or fresh. Garnish with sliced tomatoes. 2 to 3 teaspoons of Greek yogurt, salt, and pepper. Here are the directions. Be careful as you cut your 2 avocados into halves. The next thing you need to do is to remove the pits. After the pits are removed, then splash the avocado halves with lime juice. This maintains the freshness and holds the color. In a bowl, mix tuna, red onion, finely diced, red pepper, and again, finely diced, and dill. Salt and pepper to taste. Then add the yogurt and mix thoroughly. Next, spoon mixture into avocado halves. Garnish with jalapeno slices and tomatoes. And the next step is to taste your tuna stuffed avocados. Oh my, this is incredible. Thank you for honoring us at Know the Cause and joining us every day like you do. And thank you doubly for telling all your friends. This is a place to learn. Thank you, Dr. Ann Louise Gittleman. Thank you, Dr. Greg Emerson. Thank you, pharmacist Susie Cohen. Thank you for being here and learning. How can you learn more? Folks, I do a live Facebook show. Just go to Know the Cause, our website, and you can click on it and watch it. It's live from 3 to 4 every Tuesday and Thursday, Central Time, Dallas time. Lots of people type in questions, and I get to answer a lot of those. Understand, I'm not a doctor, but if I had these conditions, here's what I do. Eating good food is important, just like our tuna stuffed avocado. The diet is so important. The lifestyle is so important. Get well and stay well. God bless you, folks. See you next time.